Your call, Chairman.
You sit down for the next hour or so.
Might as well stand up.
Yeah, stay there.
Showtime.
We're going to begin our meeting.
I'll simulate.
Shoulder rolls.
That I can do, that I can do. At least it's sort of.
Which, will you lead us in the pledge?
Gladly. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You have the meetings, our minutes for the meetings in April 11th in front of you, pages 1 and 2.
Can I ask you a question, sir?
Sure.
Just, I was going to bring it up, I think last time, and maybe Charles, we had that motion, we were talking about the Kennedy Avenue and the Willow Creek Road in the out years. We're going to try to get that information with full commission, that we're going to save, like, allocate money for them, even though.
Okay,
Thank you for bringing that up.
I just didn't know how, if that was handled already, or we need to do something here at this group. I forgot to bring it up last time, so.
Yes, I'm just, Charles
Yeah, Charles is here.
Yeah, I'm just trying to.
So, yes, on the February 28th,
Mhm.
we did have a motion. Mark was involved with it, and I think Mike Jabo was the, no, I think he was the one that, and I think Mark was the second on
Yeah, I
that.
was the second.
Regardless,
So anyway, in that they would recommend that in 2029, which is an out year in the tip, that we would look to take care of the next two phases of the Willow Creek and Willow Creek Road for Porter County, and Kennedy Avenue for Cherville, funding those projects. Being we had a smaller NOFA this year for 27 and 28. It'll still make a small NOFA next time, but at least those projects will be moving forward.
My concern was just, people may not be here, and we kind of agreed to that at our TPC meeting, and Jeff's been battling hard for years, and Chris, so if there's something I need to do to help facilitate that, I'm all in, I just didn't.
appreciate that. I think we all are.
Yeah, we all are.
And for whatever reason, it wasn't reflected in last month's minutes on February 28th.
And it should be reflected in
Can
today's
second
meeting.
Mark's comments?
Jeff?
Just a quick comment. Yes, we've been working hard on both projects. I know Chris and myself have. We'd like to get this before executive board and or full commission so that we can get their head down on this. Because if they go ahead and turn us down, I mean, this is a big thing, saying in this year, we're gonna fund only 2 projects. If they turn us down, then we need to start making other plans for our projects. So we'd like this to go forward and get it in the records if we could.
With the assistance of staff, I'll bring it to the next executive board meeting.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Since I just got appointed to the executive board, so
Other than that,
I got something to do.
yeah, motion to approve the minutes.
Thank you. Those were the minutes for April 11th. Now, all those in favor signify by saying aye. And now we move on to the minutes of February 28th, or move backward to February 28th, 2023. That's on pages 3 and 4. Any additions, corrections, comments?
Almost like,
Those minutes should reflect
yeah,
the motion and the second and the approval
yeah, appreciate it.
of funding the 2 legacy projects, Kennedy Avenue and Willow Creek. in the fiscal year 2029.
So 4, if you got that down, so we will correct the minutes of the 28th. Also make reference of the discussion today, please.
I'll make that motion with those amendments for the Willow Creek Road and the Kennedy Avenue project to be added.
Very well, thank you. Any other comments, questions? That will be good. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anybody against? Ayes have it. Do we have any public comment on agenda items today?
No.
Anybody from the public? Nobody signed in? Speak now or forever hold your peace. Let's move on to planning. For fiscal year 2024-2028, Transportation Improvement Program approval, we're going to get an update from Charles.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and other members of the TPC. Currently, the 2024 to 2028 TIP is in a sort of a limbo. The whole issue comes from the air quality side and not so much the transportation planning side. Last year, Lake and Border counties faced a deadline of demonstrating attainment for the 2008 ozone standards, since they're designated as being severe non-attainment. IDEM had asked NERC for modeling transportation emissions, and we provided those to those. But in the timeliness to comply with this deadline, we were not able to use the projections from our newest travel demand model, which was still being updated at the time. And it was not clear to us that the transportation emissions that they were asking for were going to be used to set budgets and we determine conformity for our 2024-2028 TIP, as well as our NWI 2050 plus plan this year. The request was specifically to evaluate comparisons between either no emissions, emission testing with existing parameters every other parameter year, or hypothetical emission testing programs every year. So nothing was ever stated about the winning scenario in this comparison, which turned out to be the second one, emissions testing with existing every other year parameters. And being used to, in the absolute sense, to set the budgets. These budgets were set then in Federal Register in May of 2022 based on the transportation emissions from our old travel demand model. So now we are required to use our updated travel demand model based on conformity with the conformity rules in the ICG. We found that we are no longer able to demonstrate conformity within those type budgets. IDEM has agreed and ICG has allowed us to revise our 2008 ozone state improvement program by amending budgets using the new travel demand model, which will be completed, which should be completed about 60 days after IDEM submits the new draft amendment to the EPA. So we're hoping the commission will be able to adopt a new conformity for the fiscal years 2024 to 2028 TIP and the new NWI 2050 plus in July. One last comment, we're not the only ones that are having this issue. There's 4 or 5 other MPOs in in Indiana that are having the same issue. So this isn't just a NERC versus IDEM or NERC versus EPA issue. There's a lot of others having this issue, so this is nothing new. So in the July amendment, we will be presenting the new air quality emissions as well as the new TIP. Any new projects that we had in the new TIP that have funding in 24 and 25 we went ahead and put them in the amendment for this month, May. So they will get automatically thrown into the current tip, so that any project that has funding, I hope I caught them all, I think I caught them all, I'm pretty sure I caught them all, but we want to make sure that any project that has funding in 24 and 25, that funding is available come July 1st. Okay?
Any questions for Charles? Pretty complicated, and I'm glad you made it clear that we're not being picked on. That's not even Region 5, it's the entire, or there's many MPOs.
Yeah, there's several throughout the state. So I know Maycog is one of them. Indianapolis, I think, is another one. Okie, Oklahoma,
Or no, Ohio, Kentucky, Indiana.
Kentucky, Indiana. And then there's, I think, another one or two more. Terre Haute has issues.
Did Evansville also have issues? Or?
I think just about everybody that has, that is an air containment area, that is in a air quality containment area, is having issues. So.
Thank you. Not great news, but it's not the end of the world for us either.
Right, and we were able to pivot. Normally, the amendment that I have this month comes out in April, but being things were such in a flux, we didn't push through an April amendment and moved it back to May, because to put out an amendment takes about 40 days before the commission meeting. So that puts us all the way back to the 1st of March, and things were still kind of in a flux. So.
Anybody have anything else to say?
I came in. Well, Charles, I just want to thank you for thinking ahead to look at the 24 and 25 projects to get them in an amendment in the meantime, because that really puts us in a bind and puts us behind schedule as well.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if we can compare lists like we talked about earlier, I think that's going to be important.
I do not want to bite the hand that feeds me.
Thank you for working with us, Lisa. In the back.
I just wanted to add, thank you, Charles, for the great explanation, but this committee and commission in March did adopt the new interagency consultation for protocol procedures, and that'll help streamline this process going forward, but that didn't have time to make it into the formal protocol for this round, so that should help us in the future. So, just so you know, that what you acted on in March should be part of the solution.
Just a question or clarification regarding the motion that was amended into the minutes reflecting Cherville's Kennedy Avenue and Porter's Willow Creek extension. Will that change the draft tip that's currently published as far as moving those funds into 2029?
No, those projects are already in the current tip with having funds in 24 and 25. 2029 is outside of any tip.
Right. I just know there's funding in 2027 for both of those projects. I wasn't sure if that money that moved to 29, I think as we discussed this morning, would open up that amount of funding for other projects. I wasn't sure if that would make an amendment to the tip.
But we have plenty of time to make that amendment, but I think that's already been accounted for. But I'll look at it. David?
I was just going to ask for clarification, just to confirm the tip and conformity are coming up in July, or just conformity?
Both.
Oh, I just want to make sure. All right.
It's going to be a very busy July. So plan your vacations accordingly and come here first. Then go on vacation.
Charles, you're reading my mind. Thank you for participating. Anything else? If not, let's move on to the Resolution 2307, fiscal year 2024 Unified Planning Work Program approval.
Good morning.
Morning. Energetic. As you've already deciphered, I am not EMAG. One error to me. Unfortunately, EMAG broke her hand last week or a couple of weeks ago. And although I am very thankful for all the audience today, we do have a few people online, one of them being EMAG herself. So I'm sure she will vigorously text me if I'm wrong on any of this.
With a broken hand, probably not legal.
She told me I have to learn to write with my left hand. I'm like, what's the problem with that? So, moving on, we're going to talk here about the UPWP, a little bit about it itself, the fiscal year 24 document that we are looking for recommendation for approval of the commission. Going to talk a little about it because you've heard a lot about it. People probably don't know what it is because acronyms, right? So, I want to make sure we kind of get identified with this document and how important it is for the work here at NERC. There's the acronym, the CODER, Unified Planning Work Program. Might be the last time I actually say it in full. So, Unified Planning Work Program, and we are looking for approval for the next coming fiscal year of 2024. Let's talk a little bit about the background of this. It is the core planning document, and it is required by the United States Department of Transportation. And it is the approved work plan for MPO staff here and abroad, abroad being throughout the United States. It specifically identifies tasks over the next fiscal year, state calendar from June to July, July to June. Okay. It is also a fiscal planning document for our staff, and it links resources to our funds to address regional issues of concern to our particular area. Obviously, no UPWPs that look the same between MPOs. They all have different issues that they're dealing with. And it does attempt to address major surface transportation issues facing Northwest Indiana today and into the future. And it's responsible for transportation funding primarily in urbanized areas of Lake, Porter, and LaPorte counties, and those have grown a little bit. Here's the map of those urbanized areas now. And most of those remain the same. We have Group 1 and Group 2 funding, Group 1 being Lake and a lot of Porter County, and that gray, kind of in that slate blue, is Group 2 funding. Those are two types of funds designated for projects here in the region and deciphered off accordingly based on population. But in this case, you see the Valparaiso area has grown a bit, Shorewood Forest. I believe Valparaiso has become its own urbanized area specifically. And so that's the newest addition to what we have to work with planning-wise. Now, it doesn't mean we don't work with anybody outside of those. We certainly do, but when we get our funds, this is where we actually program them. Everything outside of the urbanized areas falls into Group 3 and Group 4 funding. Those are actually funded directly by NDOT, not us. But these are the ones we're responsible for in Northwest Indiana. So the sections of the UPWP breakdown, and this gives you a good flavor of what we do here. A lot of people don't even know what we do. Well, here you go. We have administration. Of course, we have to deal with administration, and there's lots of tasks that are associated with that here. We get the data collection and analysis. I speak kind of personally here. We have, there he is. We have Kevin. Kevin is out there working with us soon on traffic counts with some new technology we have purchased. I am working on trail counts throughout the region with, again, new technology that we've purchased. And these are very important to kind of keep on board with what's going on the roads, on the trails in our region. We have the short-range planning, 300. That's exactly what Charles does here. Charles does the short-range planning with our TIP and projects that are in our 5-year plan. And then we have the long-range plan, of course. We're in the middle of that now with the update to the 2050 plus, or the 2050 plan being called 2050 plus. So that is the primary long-range planning work we do in our office. Multimodal, you're looking at it. That's non-motorized transportation. That's my corner of the plan itself with bike, pedestrian, and other types of formats. Special planning activities do arise once in a while. One of them that we are dealing with, again, on my end of the spectrum here is the plan for the old Plank Road Trail extension from Dyer to Chicago Heights. And that is currently underway, and we hope to have that document released later this year. And then 700 is FTA, Federal Transit Authority subrecipient oversight. Okay, so we deal with much of this and deal with a lot of the demand response riders over agencies within the 3-county area, and we work with them dealing with FTA funding and also some capital projects as well. So this gives you an idea. You're going to see these numbers kind of flying around the rest of the slide, so you kind of somewhat of an understanding of where they are applied to. So the required elements. Now these required elements is based on the authorizing legislation. The one we are under right now is the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. It was also called the Bipartisan Infrastructure Bill, but it is affectionately known in our office as IIJA. And it outlines many planning emphasis areas, and these are what they are. So we have to, within the work plan of the UPWP, we have to make sure we're addressing these specifically. And they deal with climate, equity and justice in transportation planning, complete streets, I'll mention that momentarily, public involvement, strategic highway network, U.S. Department of Defense coordination, Federal Land Management Agency coordination, planning and environmental linkages, data and transportation planning, okay? Which you would expect any good planning office to keep mindful of. That's what the feds want us to do. That is their primary focus for us, okay? And not having you read a very tiny slide, but this gives you an overview of those emphasis areas that I just mentioned and how we address them specifically within each planning element, all those 400, 500, dot. That's where they're found within our UPWP. So we have to make sure that we are addressing that, and we're addressing it with a series of elements throughout our work plan. So we have made sure to take care of that. Now, as for action items, there are additional elements. So we go above and beyond these federal standards, and these are strategies that are identified in our current 2050 plan. So we have to be mindful of that. You don't put out a plan there without trying to get it done. So we have action items regarding that plan, and again, lots of small text here, but there are several different action items, and we have, I'll just go to the first one, is a plan for smart land uses and quality of place, and then again, all the elements of our actual UPWP that address that specifically, and again, on and on and on. I think I've got 16 action items here that all relate directly back to the goals and objectives that are stated in that 2050 plan. So we're making sure not only are we making the feds happy, we're making our own regional stakeholders happy and addressing it accordingly throughout the balance of the work plan. Okay, and then a little side note on complete streets. With all of these emphasis areas, there was an actual requirement by the IIJA requiring metropolitan planning organizations, or MPOs, like NERC, to expend not less than 2.5% of their planning funds on complete streets. Okay, and we achieved that. Now, there's a series of planning initiatives that are identified to meet this quota, and with us, that equated to about $53,000, which will be used in the next fiscal year towards two major projects. We're looking at the Gary Elevated Trail Study, which would be a component of the Marquette Greenway when complete, and also for complete streets, corridors, and planning towards that end. So those are the two major things that we will be focusing on to satisfy the complete streets mandate that's in the legislation. And then we have the budget. Now, this all these tables, all these numbers and everything else you can find on the link that we sent to you earlier. Hopefully you did review that before the meeting, but all the numbers in the budget show here, and it's all combined. We have a total amount, if you go all the way to the right and back and down, you have $3.108,712 that we have allocated for planning here. Again, taking into account all of those elements of our work plan that we here deal with, and of course, then we have different staff that are in charge of those different products or those elements, okay? And so that's how it gets spread out. That's how we work within our internal budget here and how we plan for the future at NERC. Again, so we're just over about $3.1 million total for all the planning in this region, which brings me to David Bowie. So, why is David Bowie on my plan? Well, because what changes, right? We do have a few, okay? So at least to remind me that I have to bring this up. We did get some comments back from the FHWA and I believe INDOT and the FTA. FTA didn't levy any comments. These are, at this point, these are pretty procedural. There was quite a few typos that were actually identified here. From our cursory review, staff is not concerned that these are going to significantly alter the planning or the UPWP draft document in any format. So what we're going to ask for is a motion contingent on making sure we satisfy these minor changes, and we will have that completed document ready in its complete and revised form for next week's commission meeting. So there you go. And I'm done. So I'm here to answer any questions. Other people from the staff are here to answer any questions as well.
David?
In the past, our TPTC and other special projects in the region were required to be in here. Usually, someone would reach out to us and say, we're working on the UPWP. Do you have a description of TPTC planning activities? I think the Park Services also has stuff in here as well. I would like to have that added. Basically, it's a boilerplate paragraph that I can even read off because I put it together already. To have that added, just so we're protected on GPTC's end. Essentially, if it's okay, hold on, let me go back to my notes. Short and long-range transit planning activities designed to enhance and expand service delivery of transit for regional patrons. Items being explored are regional transit expansion, including rapid bus service, expansion and lakeshore expansion, micromobility, outreach and marketing, transit-oriented facilities and development, planning for facility improvements and upgrades, intelligent transportation, and civil rights planning. That's it.
I'll look to my transit people. Kevin, any questions about that, or Stephen?
I don't really understand what it's for, I guess, so I don't really know.
Any federally funded planning activities that are transit-related have to be in the UPWP. Okay. So we've always had that element in there. Usually it formerly was a 2-page section, but now it's just a paragraph. It has been for the past several UPWPs, and this is basically it. I updated it to include things we're doing now that have already, been implemented and taken those off. But that's about it. But it's a required element for the UPWP. We've actually had to amend the UPWP in the past when it wasn't in there. So I'd like to not have to go through that amendment process and have it added here.
Okay, then I would say to go to Tom or E-Man to get that changed for.
Yeah, there is a section, the last page of the document that specifically does have that paragraph for GPTC. It's under the section Other Significant Regional Planning Activities. It's on page 93 of the document.
Okay.
There's GPT as well as monthly.
And that gets good.
So, what I was going to mention, David, is to forward us the paragraph, and we can confer with you to make sure, and it sounds like we have incorporated it, and if that's to your liking, we can work with you on that, on any other minor changes that might be necessary.
Okay, I'm assuming I will put Tom's, welcome. I don't have his Nerv's email address, so I'm going to send it to Stephen and Kevin, and you guys work together.
That'd be fantastic.
All right.
Thank you, David.
Thank you.
And please take a look at page 93 and see if that fulfills what you're requesting. Anybody else?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
motion to approve or to recommend to the full commission, subject to minor changes by staff.
Second.
You have a second by David Wright?
No, that was Mark.
Or Mark, I'm sorry.
I raised my hand too.
Yeah, it's
I've got allergy issues, I'm not hearing so well, so I don't. Here's voices as well, but Dean made the first, Mark made the second. Any other comments, questions, contributions? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Now we'll move on to programming. We'll start with the public comment report of Amendment 22-09 to the 2022-2026 TIP. Charles?
Back to me. I have one resolution, one amendment for you today, resolution 23-06, and it is for amendment 22-09. And it's on pages 8 to page 40 of your packet. The projects listed in these amendments were released for public comment on April 19th and will close tomorrow, May 10th. As stated in the public comment report on page 7, and I looked this morning, as of 9:30 this morning, NERC has not received any comments on any of the projects or the proposed amendments. So that's the public comment report. Moving on to the resolution. The resolution is for Amendment 22-09 for Amendment 22-09 and contains 28 new projects and modifications to projects for fiscal years 24, 25, 26, and some in 27. But 27 is outside of the current TIP. So these will be rolled over into the new TIP. But as I mentioned earlier, this amendment has several projects for both NDOT and locals that have funds in 2024 and 2025. So from the note for last year, we put those in to make sure that they could access those funds if they had not been included previously. NDOT has 12 new projects. There's 3 bridge overlays. There's 3 bridge rehab projects. There's a drainage correction project. There's 4 ITS or Intelligent Transportation Systems project. And there's 1 National Electric Vehicle Infrastructure or NEVI project. There's 5 new projects for low or no emission vehicles in East Chicago, LaPorte County, Lake Station et al., and Portage. Lake Station, I think, has 8 or 10 different communities in it with that one. What?
It's greater than 16.
16? Okay. Lake and Porter counties each have added a new bridge replacement. Lowell has eliminated 1 project and added substantial amount of funding for construction on another. Michigan City has added substantially more funds to a construction project in their streetscape project. Munster added the new RAISE grant to the TIP. NERC added the Marquette Greenway, put it into 3 different phases, 1 for each county, and added the public education funds for our Drive Clean Indiana agreement. And then Portage has added a Marquette Greenway Trust Bridge Rehab project. Are there any questions?
Yes.
Yes.
What is, so some of the pages say Amendment 24-00. There's a couple that say 22-09 on 14 and pages 14 and 15. But should they all say 2209?
They should.
Okay, I was just making sure. 2 of them do, but the rest I don't really. They're labeled as 24-00.
Yeah, I see that. Thank you for bringing that to my attention. I'll make sure that's corrected for the commission, but these are all, I think the 24-00, 2000 were the new projects that were not in the previous TIP.
Oh, okay.
That were going to be, that were put into the original, so the new TIP that's coming in, but I had to pull them back so that they can, so they can get funding, and then they'll be, so it might be the pickup in the system.
Okay.
That's my story, I'm sticking to it.
Good enough. Any other questions, comments? Now, do I have a motion?
Mr. President, or Chairman, I move to recommend the commission, subject to technical corrections, resolution 2306.
Dean made the first, do I have a second? Second from Mr. Topol. Any other discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Anybody against? That's so moved. Thank you, Charles. Now we move on to topical committee reports.
All right, I'll start. The 3PC, we met a couple weeks ago. One of the major things that we had talked about at great length during that meeting was the active transportation section of the upcoming 2050 plus planning document, since it was going for public review at the time. So that's moving along. And there were several updates to different trail projects that are opening up this year as well. We have the Marquette Greenway opening up between Portage and Burns Harbor at Salt Creek, just over here in the Ameriplex area. We have the bridge in Hammond over Calumet Avenue. Yep, that's going to have a May 31st.
We certainly hope so. It's
Okay.
on target to at least have a soft opening by the end of the month.
Have a soft opening. We have the Pensy Greenway in Cherville opening soon, later next month as well. And that connects Norman Park down to Clark Road, the Crown Point jurisdiction line. And then, very big project, people kind of don't see it, it's under the radar, the C&O Greenway in Maribel. It's going to connect up to Oak Ridge Prairie. That means something to you. Oak Ridge Prairie currently is a confluence of the Erie, Lackawanna, and Oak Savannah trails. Now you're going to have the C&O trail connected to it as well, so you can go 3 different directions at one park. So quite impressive. I wish I was here to give kudos to Lake County Parks, and I know the town of Maribel is here. Steve, there he is. So kudos to those organizations, those entities, for making this happen and getting that money and making it work. And that'll open up later this year as well. And they're rumbling on through that abandoned corridor, and I believe there will be a hawk signal on Taft Street, which is also State Route 55. So they'll be accomplishing that difficult crossing with the hawk signal. So those are the updates.
Any other topical committees here?
Oh, one more thing. Sorry, Scott, I'm so sorry. You can yell. I get a million questions, maybe not that much, I embellish, on the bike map. And again, our policy is the bike map will not be reprinted in '23. It'll be reprinted, it'll be updated, and it'll look fabulous for '24 on a new update. But we have a new app that you can find on your Android or your Apple phones. You simply find Calumet Greenways and Blueways. You'll see our Waterleaf logo. You're home. So please avail yourself of that, and we will see you next year with paper maps. Because I know some people think those are very important, and they are very important. We will continue to do that. Now, Scott, your turn.
The Surface Transportation Committee met on Tuesday, April 25th. We talked about some of the next steps recommended in the roads and bridge chapters in the draft NWI 350+, as well as we did a presentation on the safety and travel time reliability freight and congestion performance measures in the first quarter of the calendar year 2023. And we talked about some of the discretionary grant opportunities that are coming down the pike available for communities to apply for, such as the next round of the Safe Streets and Roads for All program that Hammond, East Chicago, and Gary are currently recipients for a safety action plan for, but there's going to be another round to apply. Those are the main things I have to report. Thanks.
Any other topical committees? Any reports? Speak now. Okay, let's move on to Drive Clean Indiana. He has a report.
Yeah. Good morning, everyone. So on May 5th, we had the Northwest Indiana Partners for Clean Air and Luncheon Awards in Hammond Marina, and there was 2 scholarships announcements for 2 high school seniors in the local area. That was from Michigan City High School and Chesterton Senior High School. Additionally, Partner for Clean Air's recipients for this year, the Business Award went to GE Marshall for diesel emission reductions. And the Industrial Award went to Boss Equipment and Cleveland Cliffs in East Chicago for their commitments to reducing their emissions. And then the City of Portage received the Municipal Award for their implementation of compressed natural gas vehicles into their fleet. And then Jerry Jackson from the port received the Mark Saminsky Bicycle Award. Going on right now, we have the Indiana Clean School Bus Consortium that we're working on, and there will be funding available for alternative fuel buses coming up. That is due in August. We will be putting in a state application. And so if there's schools that you work with, please have them reach out and get on the Indiana Clean School Bus Consortium. We meet on a monthly basis, usually the second Tuesday of every month. There will be a NEVI meeting with National Electric Vehicle Implementation Program with INDOT on May 23rd over at the Government Center down in Indianapolis from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. That addresses the electric vehicle fast charging infrastructure that's going to be deployed throughout the state. On June 1st, we have the Northwest Indiana Green Fleet EVE Electric Vehicle Zoning Boot Camp Ordinance Best Management Practices Opportunities. So that will be held here at Mercy. And then on the August 13th, we have our Partners for Clean Air Day at Gary South Shore Rail Cats in Gary, Indiana. Please sign up today and register and enjoy a great day, great outing. And then we have our annual conference on August 22nd and August 23rd at the Blue Chip Casino. Getting into grant funding, we will be submitting a charging and fueling infrastructure grant program. There is $700 million available. We are working with multiple state opportunities and representatives for implementation of electric vehicle charging stations, propane stations, natural gas, and hydrogen fueling stations. Please reach out to us by the 15th if you have interest, because this is 80% funding, and combining that with the clean fuel infrastructure tax credit, there is not a better opportunity than this right now for alternative fuel infrastructure. There's another program that's out for the reduction of truck emissions at port facilities. This grant is due on June 26th. There's $160 million available for truck emission reductions. And please reach out to us if you have interest in that. We will be working with the port on that. Any questions for me? All right. Thank you very much.
Any questions? Sorry, I thought they'd have all sorts of questions for you. They did it at UPC? Yeah. Do we have any other committee reports? Do we have any other business, staff announcements? There's a schedule of upcoming meetings on the agenda, just for your information, including the executive board meeting, May 18th at 9 a.m. in this room. T-Rock for LaPorte will be May 23rd at 1 o'clock. T-Rock for Lake and Porter County will be May 23rd at 9 a.m. Those of you participating. I should mention that we did have an amendment or amended February meeting minutes that quote said, on motion by Mike Jagel, second by Mark Odell, 2 transformative projects will be allowed to have priority funding or funding priority in 2029. So there was an effort by staff to correct it. And I think Mr. Odell for bringing it to our staff's attention earlier, because, it's about a month ago that we got the email and on the email chain. So that had actually been corrected, but it doesn't hurt to say it twice. I'll bring it up at next meeting with the assistance of staff. Anything else good for the cause? If not, motion to adjourn.
Second.
Do I have a second? Our next TPC meeting will be July 11th. So please be there. There's a ton of stuff you need to get done.
Thank you.
We're adjourned.